Hey everybody, welcome back to Pop Culture Warrior. I am your host CQ as always, and I am super excited because my guest tonight is an actor who was born in Chicago, Illinois, and has been acting since he was a young adult. He is best known for playing Wes Collins, the Red Time Force Ranger, and his future counterpart Alex in the Power Rangers franchise, a role he's reprised again in spin-offs for Wild Force and Super Mega Force and on. He's also starred in the animated film Resident Evil Vendetta, the web series The Order, and the TV show NCIS Los Angeles. He's a former baseball player, a model for Tommy Hilfiger and Calvin Klein, if you can believe the internet. And of course, he is a girl dad of 3. He is a versatile and talented performer who can do it all. I am thrilled to have him here today to talk about his work, his life, and everything in between. Everyone, give a huge, huge welcome to our guest tonight, the amazing Jason Faunt, everybody.
What's up, guys? How are you? My God, that's quite an entrance. I don't know if I should say anything. It can only bring my stock down. Huh?
I get that a lot. I'm the hype man. I want to give you what you deserve, man. The recognition for all the work you've done and the things you do in and around the camera, but also far away from it as well.
I love it.
I really appreciate your time. We're gonna try to keep this as tight as possible. So right out the gate, I'll ask you the same question I ask every guest. What is your military connection?
Well, I actually have a lot. My grandfather was in the Navy. My brother was in the Marines, and my sister was in the Navy as well, flying the I forget what type of helicopter she was in. But my grandfather and sister and brother both did tours, Afghanistan, Iraq, and of course my grandfather was in World War One, two. I guess World War One he was in. So I forget which one it was, but there is military in my background. So I'm a huge proponent of all things military. It's what keeps us safe to live the amazing lives that we have here in America that I hope that we don't forget about. And sometimes I think we do.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, well, we appreciate their service, their sacrifice, and their time. So for you, before we dive into the work, I like to get to know the person behind all the characters and costumes and things. So, this is a pop culture show. What do you geek out about outside of, your industry? What's your go-to geek thing?
Wow. Well, I grew up a big fan of Superman. I mean, Christopher Reeve, growing up watching all those movies, everything that I wore, everything that I pretended to be was in the Superman genre. So that was pretty cool when I got to meet some of the other Supermen over the years that have worn the suit, different TV shows, and people like Tyler or Dean. So Superman was my thing, and then more recently I became a big fan of Deadpool. I'm not as well read as some in the Marvel world, but when I went to see it with my young daughters, I was like, oh my God, like he's cussing and strip clubs, and I did not see that coming at all. But that humor's right in my alley. So Deadpool is my most recent thing that I really like.
Very nice. Good choices. Excellent choices.
Yep.
And I'm assuming you do a lot of conventions too, so you cross paths with a lot of those old Supermen, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, now we cross paths with a lot of the guys. The Jason Momoas, Sebastian, who was the Winter Soldier.
That's right.
I mean, a lot of those guys are at these shows now, so it's pretty cool. I'm not a kid, so I think I always think that when you're a kid, you look at the superheroes. So me and Christopher Reeve would have been really special to me, and of course, it's cool to meet some of these other guys. But you have that special place in your heart when you're a kid.
Absolutely. I'm always curious. What are maybe some of the causes or issues, things that you're passionate about or involved in? I know obviously you have a platform, you have influence. What is it that you like to raise awareness to or try to help make a difference?
Oh, good question. Gosh, what is it that I raise awareness to? I've been, a lot of the stuff that I do or I'm involved in, I kind of keep off of social media. I think things have become kind of polarized. Like I'm a big proponent of the police. Big supporter of supporting our police force, and of course that became polarized. So for me, that's a big deal. I've got a lot of friends in the police force, and So I think that that's something that I'm always very well aware of. There's a canine unit that I've done some work with out here in Westminster Police Force, where they do a lot of stuff with canines and German Shepherds in terms of helping to combat crime or stuff like that. So I would say a big proponent of the police.
Okay. Hey, that's great. That's an awesome
Yep.
thing. So something a little fun. I mean, given your connection, if you could travel to any time period, past or future, where are you going and why?
You know what? I would like to see what happened to the dinosaurs. I think for me, going back in time, I think that there's a couple things that would pique my interest. And the first is to kind of find out when you had dinosaurs roam the earth and then when you didn't. Like,
Mhm.
what happened right there? So I'd be very curious to see what, I always think about if you were to just plant yourself somewhere like where I am right now in my home, and you just had that old school VCR knob where just rewound time and you could sit back and see everything that happened right here and just toggle it and rewind it. I'd be curious to see that. And then lately I've been kind of piqued with the pyramids, hearing things about the pyramids in Egypt, of how that was built and how preposterous it was to have done these things at that time.
Yes.
And then I think that's and then to find out what happened to JFK. Those are probably my three biggies.
Okay, I like it. I
Yep.
like you're
Yep.
you're a mysteries solved kind of guy. I got you.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, I like that. I like that. So let's talk a little bit about how did you get into acting, like, and what inspired you to kind of pursue this crazy thing as a career?
Well, Tom Cruise, Risky Business. So the story that I always like to tell is that I was a sophomore in high school, and I was sick. I had like the flu or something where you're kind of like throwing up off and on, fever. And both my mom and stepdad, worked, so they rented some videos for me. And then like that was like basically just, hey, watch some movies, get some, keep yourself hydrated, and then they went off to work. And during that 2 hours of Risky Business, I was it was one of those things I was kind of magically taken away and just forgot I was sick for those 2 hours. And at that moment, I remember thinking like that looked like fun. And if I ever had a chance to, when my baseball career ends, because that continued to blossom, I remember thinking, uh, I'm gonna try and be an actor. So Risky Business, Tom Cruise is what inspired me to do it. And when I graduated college, I packed my bags and I moved out to LA with a very old pickup truck, very little money, and went out to chase a dream.
Say that's the American dream. I love it.
That's right.
What can you remember? What can you share with us from that first acting gig? Right, like the first experience where you're like, okay, this is it. Like I'm acting now.
Mhm. Uh, it was exciting for me. I went on to a show called Sunset Beach as an extra, and back when you move out to Hollywood, everybody has their tales of what to do, how to succeed, like any career, what you should or should do. And one of the things I said was, don't be an extra in a TV show, right? Because if you're an extra, they look at you as an extra. They'll never think of you as a leading actor, principal actor. And all I thought was like, well, why wouldn't I go to set and get paid to watch and learn? Like if I were to, be in the military or be in a sport, isn't there benefits to going to a locker room or to a practice field to watch how a Tom Brady practices? Just sit there and watch his method, what he does, how he interacts with people, learn from the best. So I thought, well, let me just go and be a fly on the wall and watch and learn. So I did that. So it was exciting to see it all play out. And then ultimately that led to because I was there, it led to my first lines, got my SAG card. And then from there, started slowly work my way up to bigger and better roles.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. But yeah, I have heard, from people inside the industry where they're like, well, if you're an extra, you're always going to be an extra, and
Yes.
it's like, I disagree, but yeah, you're spot on. You're absolutely spot
Yep. Yep.
on. Obviously, the big thing that comes up is Power Rangers Time Force. What was your audition process for that like? And then how'd you feel when you landed it?
Well, I read for Power Rangers 3 different times. I read for Lost Galaxy, didn't get it. And then I read for Lightspeed Rescue, didn't get it. And then the joke I always tell, which, I'm sure people have heard it, is that by the third year they called me back, I thought they either like me or they feel sorry for me. I'm not sure what's happening. So I went back for a third time, 3 years, every time it's a year. And there was, I want to say it was either 5 auditions over 3 months or 3 auditions over 5 months. But it took a long time. Like, it did it and weeks would go by, and then they'd call you back and weeks would go by. So it was a very long process because they're scanning, to see as many people as they can. So long process, and it came down to me and one other guy, and I still remember his name to this day, Cameron Bender. I don't know why that sticks in my mind. And I got the role, and I remember where I was. I remember how excited I was, and great, very great moment in my life.
Outstanding. And how do you prepare? Like, once you, okay, I'm doing this thing, I'm going to be this character. How do you prepare for playing him? And then knowing too that, like, it's Wes and Alex, right? And they're different personalities, different timelines. How do you get your head around that? How do you prepare?
Well, I think for earlier roles that you get, you basically land roles that are you. The personality is you. They give those roles that are deeper, typically for more seasoned actors or names. So I think when I walked in the door, the way that I talk, the way that I think, the way my hand gesture, however I am, I think that they thought, okay, this guy's persona is Wes. And if he knows how to act and he's not up there freezing and delivering the lines very monotone, and he's got no levels to the scenes, then he can't act, but his personality is Wes. So I think that's what happened. I think I am Wes minus the wealthy upbringing. And then, but the challenge was to play the role of Alex, who that's a farther departure for who I am. And that became more about all your mannerisms, the things you do in between the dialogue, how you sit, how you speak, your body language. I'm sitting here now, my legs crossed, sitting back. Alex would never sit like this. So it was about just creating the movement of what he does. You're not going to get on there and change your voice, so, but the way you speak, do you speak quickly? Is that your cadence? Do you speak slow and deliberately? Right. Your posture. So finding Alex was a lot more difficult because I am not from the military background, and they tried to focus on that side of him. So finding the differences between the two was what was fun. And I think, Alex was much more still, much more direct, much more to the point. Wes, of course, is very open, lighthearted, vulnerable, and that's the two characters.
I love it. I love it. Speaking of that, how, I'm trying to think of the word. It's a very physically intense thing, being a Power Ranger, an actor on a Power Ranger, because there's a lot of stunts and running and jumping and kicking and these things. How much of that was part of, like, the audition process? Like, did they have you doing jumping jacks between takes or anything like that? Like, what was the physicality?
Zero.
Really?
Zero. So our season was SAG, was a union show. So, Power Rangers became union for like a handful of years in there, maybe 2 or 3 years. During those years, because they were union, they were forced to be union, which was kind of in the conversation. They said, great, let's get actual actors. So the original cast, it was, and no disrespect to the originals or some of the season leading up to it, but they would say, hey, you got 30 seconds. Let me see a kick or flip or dance. Let me see you move. And it was all about the way that they move or kick or flip. When we went in there, it was the exact opposite. It was a 5-page audition. It was a scene that had different levels of, different levels and arcs in there. And everybody had the same scene. It was a scene where they were, I forgot, something with their father. Where there was a scene in there where there was some anger and some emotion. We all had the same scene, and there was zero anything with movement.
Wow, that's surprising and interesting.
Isn't that crazy?
That is. Is there
I think they
speaking?
wanted to. Yeah, I think they wanted to. They see your look and they know if you look like this is something. If you could look the part, but the stunt doubles did the majority of the fighting for us.
Right. Gotcha. Speaking of talking about these scenes or anything, is there anything, stands out for you? Just your favorite scene, your most memorable scene, just something for you personally?
I would say the two scenes that stand out for me was both an End of Time, and I think it was the goodbye scene on the beach where we were all together saying goodbye when they were all lined up. That was a very emotionally charged scene, both in script and in real life, because we were saying goodbye and we knew it was done. And so I think that there was real sadness in there that lended itself nicely to the scene, and then also uh, the End of Time where I forced them to go back in time and was going to give up my life to fight. I think I really liked the dynamic of that, and me and Eric having to go in there and kind of do this on our own. So I think those are the two scenes that were pivotal: is the Eric and the Dan or Eric Dan, the Eric and Wes scene when they had the fight to their death, and then the goodbye scene at the end of the show.
Mm, good choices.
Yep.
Uh, Speaking of saying goodbye to it, you know, I would assume, especially after those first few seasons, when an actor comes into these roles, it's a short stint, so to speak, right? That there's a lot of range or turnover. When you're approaching that end, is it in your mind that like, well, maybe I'll come back, or is it like, well, I guess I'm done with this character and that's done? I mean, what was your feeling, hanging up the suit?
Well, I tried to come back again. I made a ploy to come back. I enjoyed it. You don't get rich on Power Rangers, but I was making a heck of a lot of money than I was making waiting tables and bartending. And so I tried to come back, and I told them I would settle for the same pay that I just did if we could come back again. And they said that's great, and we love you guys, but kind of the formula is new teams, new heroes, new suits. Uh, Apparently, there was a discussion to bring us back a second season because we had such a great camaraderie. Our cast was so wonderful. We all got there was no fighting. There was no on-set romances, which can really screw things up, you know. So I mean, Michael and I had a love, we were in love for a while, but other than that, everybody else was good. But yeah, we had a great cast. So they did contemplate bringing us back, but then ultimately said, look, this is what we do, space, galaxy, light speed, Rangers, Wild Force. It's got to be a new Red Ranger. And they ultimately let us go. Yeah.
Mm.
But I was
Yeah.
stayed. I loved it.
I mean, I could imagine so. You're a superhero. Come on, who doesn't want to be a
Yeah.
superhero?
Right.
Was there any? I mean, I know you talked about that the stuntmen did most of the work as far as that. But is there anything that was like maybe you remember a challenging day on set? Was there a certain scene or choreography or just something that stands out as it was a difficult day on set?
Yeah. As the season went on, they let us get a little more of the fighting in. And there were scenes where during, you'd have fight scenes where they would get us getting some punches and kicks, and then ultimately they would always cut away to when we got knocked down or fallen. It was a stunt guy. So they always fall with their head down, and then we start down, and then we land, we get up. So they let us do more fighting at the end. The scene with Dan and I, Eric and I, in End of Time, there was a big explosion where I throw Dan up on my shoulders, and we are running out, and they had like three huge explosions take place behind us. Those were very, very real explosions. And so they said, hey, we're setting up the dynamite, the TNT. So the guy that hits the button is literally holding remote control. And as you run through these points, he's detonating it. So as you go through, do not stop because this is going to explode behind you. Okay, that's fine. We didn't know the size or the scope of what that explosion was. So got on there, and I got Dan. I throw him up on my shoulders, and we're going, and he's kind of dragging his feet a bit. I'm always, even in real life, I got to take care of Dan. But so we're running, and I just feel this thing just go boom. I mean, just like a bomb. and you could see my face go like, oh my God. So we got to keep running. But the explosion was so big, you could just feel it come over your head like something. So we realized pretty quick that that was real. And thank God we didn't trip up or fall, because that might have not went well, you know?
Yeah, I was gonna say that'll motivate you to keep going and not
Yeah.
slow down at
Keep
all.
running. Keep running.
um, I'm curious, because we hear stories about like shooting something like that. It's like nonstop and it's go go go, and you don't have a lot of time. And so, how do you balance doing that as your day job, but then also having a life or working other projects? I mean, I can imagine that's got to be difficult.
When you're on a series, you don't really have a life. And that's not a joke. You've heard actors come off of a 6-8 year stint on a show and basically say that they walked into a sound stage and walked out 8 years later.
Mm.
Very, very hard to maintain any level of normalcy, during that time. So we were there 5-6 days a week, 10 to 12 hours a day. Part of it was because there was a pending strike and they wanted to get all this stuff done. Bigger shows are not as intensive, but you'd be on set at 6:30. You get breakfast. You go through. 6:30 means you leave your house at 5:45, 6. You get on set. They feed you breakfast. Go through wardrobe, makeup. You go to do walkthroughs. You film. You get done at 5:30, 6:30, right? Then you drive home a half an hour at 7. So you have enough time for someone like me that works out all the time. Go right to the gym, working out till 8:15, 8:30. And then you're just basically trying to like get home, shower, because you got makeup and probably dirt all over you, and gym, and then start learning your lines for the next day.
Mm.
So it's, and we were doing 6 days a week. So, to have any kind of social life was very rare.
God, I can't imagine. Yeah, I mean, and that kind of bonds you with those people too, because you're a family. You see each other all day, every day for that amount of time. I can't imagine.
Yep.
What was your reaction when they're saying, "Hey, we want to bring you back for Wild Force, for Super Mega Force. We want you to see, film some stuff." What was the reaction? Is there hesitancy to come back into that character to lace it back up, or are you just all forward?
None. Forever. I'm in this forever. These guys gave me my first real big shot. And if they asked me to come on the show tomorrow, I would be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's nothing like the fan base. I mean, as I do these conventions and these Comic Cons, there's such a connection that we have with our fan base that I don't know if anyone else does. I don't know if soaps do, or I know that A-list actors don't. So there's a amazing synergy that happens between us and the Ranger fan base. It's like we've all lived that dream and we've all continued to be together. And there's this friendship, and it's like, I'm not leaving and the fans aren't leaving. And that's evident by all the, comic book stores I go to, because they're there wanting to meet and talk and shake hands, and that's makes it a lot of fun for me too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just curious because, like, you touched on doing these conventions. One of my favorite things to always ask is, fans are awesome. They're great. Convention attendees are always great. But I've heard there can be very, I don't know, what's the nice way to put this? Interesting interactions with the fans during these conventions. I'm wondering if there's anything you can share, any wild experiences, any just crazy happenstance that may have occurred to you at a convention.
Yeah, a lot of very unique, crazy circumstances. But I will say, yeah, all that stuff is there. You travel different cities, you meet a lot of people, so there's a lot of fun, crazy stories. But there's amazing stories that people tell you from the heart, which is incredible. And I've heard so many stories of people whose lives were changed or enhanced by Power Rangers because they were going through periods of bullying or divorce or death in their family. And this was the only thing that kept them strong or kept them sane during their youth. And, there's just, I mean, adults crying that you were the guy that got me through this rough period. Stuff that'll make, when I'm there, it makes me tear up because I'm so honored to have been a part of it. But there's so many heartwarming stories that you hear of how you impacted people's lives. And that makes me feel good to know that I was a part of something special.
Oh yeah. And I guess, again, being in these conventions allows you an opportunity to connect with other Rangers. Do you guys like bond over like, oh, remember how hard it was to use the bathroom? Or like, do you guys have those conversations?
100%. Yeah. 100%. And I always like telling the story, and it's, and unfortunately Jason's gone now because him and I were so close. But we were in New Zealand and we were filming outdoors, and it was like this. They had to it was like a nature reserve. So of course they've got porta potties there. Like that's when when you're on set, you have better better accommodations. But when you go off to some nature reserve in New Zealand, and they have base camp, but then when you go off to like where we're filming, they just got to use the regular porta potties. If you got to go, you got to go. And Jay and I had lunch, and we had to go to the bathroom. And we both had stomach aches, so we had to go number two, and the porta potties were back to back, so we're both sitting down in the bathroom back to back in two stalls, and it was so bad. We were both going to the bathroom with stomach aches and kind of vomiting because of the stench, and we're just in there, and I could hear him gagging and me gagging, and we laughed about it to the day he passed. It just like, I remember him going like, dude, this feels like prison. And we're laughing, but while we're throwing up, but why we got a stomach ache. And it was funny to think back on that.
Oh, that's great. That's going to make a great clip, by the way. Thanks. I'm going to use that.
Good.
We got you a couple more minutes and then we'll toss it out of here. I'm curious, obviously we talked a lot about Power Ranger stuff. Is there any other roles or projects? And I'm always curious this because, a lot of the guests that I bring on, they're most known for a character, beloved for a character, but the life of a working actor is you do many characters, many roles, many gigs. Is there any role or show or something particular that you're like really proud of or you loved or you want people to go check out to see the chops that you got that you bring to the table? Anything outside of Power Rangers?
There's a lot. I'm actually proud of a lot of stuff I've done. But the two that I'll mention is there was Beast Out of the Water. Beast Out of the Water was a feature film I did. Steve Cardenas is in as well. And it's just kind of about this fountain of youth that's taking place, and these military guys are going in trying to obtain this, and of course they're going in a native land, and in this native land there's this beast that's protecting it, and when people are coming in trying to affect it, kind of like Avatar, it's killing people. So I play a pioneer white settler guy who's coming in. We're trying to level out the Indians. So that gave me a chance to be a really good villain. So Beast Out of the Water, I play a good villain in there. And then there was something that I was really proud of called ELE, Extermination Level Event. We filmed that up in Canada. And what was cool about that was the day in the life of this soldier who comes into work, and there is some sort of potential terror threat. They're not sure if it's some sort of a Russian, the nuclear bombs going off, and all this stuff just goes from a normal day, and it watches everything progress to a DEFCON 1 where things are going crazy. It turns out it's an alien invasion, but we did it all in one take.
Wow.
So this is a 45-minute pilot episode, which never cuts. So it was filmed like a theater performance.
Wow.
And I was in 40 of those 45 pages as the lead, and I was very, very proud of the prep time that we had. I still don't know how I remembered all that dialogue, but the fact that we had to go in and through the elevators and staircase, all the while this camera's there and it's set up like a dance. And it was 45 straight minutes with no cuts. And I was very proud of that theater-like experience and performance. And of course, nothing ever happens with some of these things, but you're a part of it, you enjoy it, and you move on to the next thing. Wish it'd be more light of day. Yeah, Extermination Level Event.
All right. Well, if it's out there, I'm going to find it because that sounds awesome.
And I'm a corporal in that. So for the military side, You guys would love that. Yeah. So find that on maybe YouTube. I think that's where it is.
Very cool. Real quick, I know you are in Legend of the White Dragon because I know we were talking about Jason, and he's always been a big supporter of the military and guys. I'd seen him at multiple cons and always talk with him. Great guy. Are we allowed to talk about that yet? I know it's around the corner. I mean, do we have any information? Does it have a date yet? What's going on with that?
It doesn't have a date yet. It doesn't have a date yet. That's what I can say. What I can say is that I'm not involved in the production side. They had me on set. I did my days, did my stuff. Yeah. Jay passed away, and of course this was supposed to be a sequel. And with him passing, they had to go back and kind of film things to make things make sense. Truthfully, I wasn't a part of any of the refilming that they did. I don't know really what went on in that. So I know it's been a long time. It's been too long in my opinion. I think at some point you got to get this thing out there, because I think when he passed, people were really wanting to see this, and I don't think you want to let too much time go by.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I'm not the guy that's pushing the green button to put it out. I know they want to try and get in theaters. You gotta film extra footage to kind of make sense for theatrical distribution. So I'm not sure. I mean, I thought this was supposed to come out in September of last year.
Yeah.
September of 2022 is when I was there. Yeah. And then a year later, it's still not. And then now a year and a half later. So I don't know, bud.
Yeah. Yeah. I know the fans are clamoring for it. We're all dying to see it, honestly. And it was very tragic what happened with Jason. Great guy. Let me give you the last few seconds here. Is there anything you want to promote? Anything you want people to keep an eye out for? And of course, share your social media so people can follow you.
Sure. Well, we got a couple cool things coming up. Underdeveloped is a TV show that I'm on with Tom Arnold and Thomas Ian Nichols and Brian Metcalf. That's a new show about a bunch of failed TV producers. That first season came on Tubi, and David Henry too, from Wizards of Waverly Place. So Underdeveloped came out. The first season's out on Tubi and Amazon now, a bunch of different places. And hopefully we start filming season 2 as well. I come in on episode 6 of season 1, so you don't see me till episode 6. So Underdeveloped is on most of platforms. Of course, Legend of the White Dragon, I'm told fall this year, but I'm no longer going to say those things. Yeah. I'm going to wait till they tell me, because I've been burned many times naming dates. So, but it is done. It will be done. It will be seen. So it's just a matter of where. But Legend of White Dragon comes out later this year. And then I'm producing a new animated cartoon called Brush Brigade. And it's the story of the Tooth Fairy's daughter. And a lot of cool similarities if you're a Power Ranger fan, you're going to enjoy this. But Brush Brigade, the pilot episode is done here in about a month. And we're going to try and make that a new kids animated series. And then lastly, Seductress from Hell. There's a new kind of horror movie called Seductress from Hell that I think is going to be available here by April or May. And I'll be putting it on my social media to show everybody it, which is, segue, my Instagram is at Jason Faunt. That's my main one that I do see it. I do try and keep in touch with people there, at Jason Faunt. Facebook is Jason Faunt fan site. Twitter or X is the Jason Faunt. And I just didn't really dive into TikTok, but there is a TikTok out there with about 20,000 followers. That is me. Yeah. So I did. At some point, I'm like, I can't keep going platform to platform. I can't keep going on to this one and then Rumble and then there's the beta. I don't know what's going on, so I keep it to my.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot, but outstanding, man. I really appreciate you taking this time. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the incredible, the amazing Jason Faunt. We have to have you back. We didn't talk about baseball. I mean, you're a girl dad, which I have all the respect in the world for. The modeling, I really wanted to get into that. I had questions when I read that online, but we'll have to have you back and have all those conversations.
You know what? We absolutely can. Now that I know you, and you've been amazing through, I've had several life events tap. So I want to give you a tip of the cap because you've been very, very nicely persistent on, hey, I'm going to keep knocking on this door. And now that I know you and we've got the setup, let's circle back in a couple of months. I'm going to send you my new email because the one you have is kind of my older one. And that's why I don't see it as quickly, but I will send it to you and we will definitely get back on here.
Outstanding, man. Hey, I appreciate it. And let all your Ranger buddies know this is the place. I mean, we had Jason Narvi on. We've talked to Jason David Frank. I think we got Amy Jo's coming on here soon. So this is the spot. I want to, my Ranger people.
No, what is your, so Jay came on the show too?
Yeah. Well, so Jason David Frank, we used to talk all the time right before I made this show. And unfortunately, things happened that, he wasn't able to come on the show itself, but I have like old recordings of me and him chatting at conventions and stuff. But Jason Narvi, Skull from, Bulk and Skull, he's come on the show. I mean, obviously you're here. And like I said, we've got Amy Jo is scheduled coming soon. So keep an eye out for that.
Awesome. Well, that'll be great. You got a great lineup and let me know where is your social media with this stuff? Because I don't know if I've ever gotten yours. Right? Can you email it to me?
Oh yeah, I'll get it to you. It's Pop Culture Warrior everywhere, but I'll make sure I get you that, and we'll link up, and I'm sure we'll cross paths at different conventions. I'm sure of it. So keep doing awesome things, man. Everybody, one more time, give it up for Jason Faunt, and we'll see you guys right after the break.
Thank you, guys.